Good evening, Alan here. Welcome to our Discovering Buddhism course, second class on death and rebirth. Hope you're all very well. Good to be with you. So let's just start with our quiet 5-minute mindfulness meditation to calm ourselves down after the day. We'll get a comfortable position and we'll use breath as the object. So we're just coming now into our mind and body, letting go of the external world for this session, checking what's going on. A moment to give thanks for the opportunity for us to be able to study the Dharma, come together and do some practice together. Then making sure our body is comfortable, evenly balanced on the chair or the floor. Shoulders relaxed, eyes closed or half open or fully open. And then using the out breath to let go of all tension in the body, busyness of the mind. Have a sense of breathing out all the distractions, tenseness, letting go. Feeling the breath entering the body, leaving the body without any control, interference. It's just happening. And now we're noticing. It's like an observer watching. Movement of the body with the breath. Very physical. Bringing our awareness into the body. Staying with the breath. Watching for the distracted mind when it wanders from the breath. Being alert for that. When we notice that, be glad we noticed. And let go of the distracting thought and patiently come back to the breath. Home to the breath. Nothing to do but watch the breath. So the plan tonight, just have a quick review of what we did last week, and then we'll look mainly at the death process, the idea of rebirth, possibilities of rebirth. Sorry, I shouldn't be moving that much. And then the death process. And then we'll, if NBN permits, we'll do the they call it the 9-point meditation on death, which we went through last week. Certainty of death, uncertainty of time of death, and what will help at the time of death. So hopefully we'll do that this at the end of the class, towards the end of the class. Just one thing, Ben kindly pointed out, one of our students, Ben, that the book that I put on the book list called How to Enjoy Death, they've reissued it as How to Face Death Without Fear. So it's been reprinted. It's the same book, really, but the different title, edited by Rabina, which is Lama, collection of all, most of, or a lot of Lama Zopa's teachings on death and dying. Excellent book, and available either hard copy or digitally. And so that's probably the most detailed book on the subject within the FPMT sort of book list, the most detailed. So it is detailed. So there are more simple books that are also on the reading list. And also the readings, there's 100 and something pages of readings for this topic, and they're all excellent. They all cover the the subject very well. Nick's Rebush's transcript of his teachings is very detailed. I still haven't got through it all, but that's an excellent collection of teachings. His 6 classes, I think they are, and meditations on death and dying. Nick Rebush, who's the editor of, was head of Wisdom Books, started Wisdom Book. Now he's the main editor of the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive, which puts out books of teachings by Lama Yeshe and Lama Zohar, and also has lots of, not just books, but online collections, terrific online resources, mostly free, from the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive website. So you just Google LYWA and you'll find it. So, so last week we looked at impermanence, the different types, subtle and gross, and the 9-point meditation on death, and then we did the how to appreciate of the human life, which is a very good one to do as a kind of preliminary to the teachings on death and dying, appreciating how precious and rare the human life is that we've got, and so we can combine that with the certainty of death meditation, and the two together, we've got this amazing opportunity, and it won't last. So let's make the most of this uncertain amount of time that we've got in the human body. So hope you got the notes. Quite a lot of extracts from His Holiness's teachings, particularly on the book Approaching the Path, the foundation of Buddhist practice. The other good book, which I'm going to read from today in bits, is Dr. Adrian Feldman's book, who was recently teaching at VI, The Perfect Mirror. So there it is, Perfect Mirror. I think you can get it probably online and also in different, digital or hard copy. Trupchen Getzo, his ordained name. So he's such a good teacher, Venerable Adrian, and being Australian, being incredibly senior monk, he's done 3-year retreat, very ex-doctor, he's and a very good writer. He's got a very good style that makes it very easy to understand. So that's has a small chapter on death and dying. It's very good. So just some of this we've covered before, the continuity of consciousness. So we need to, studying death and dying in Buddhist the Buddhist context always involves the concept of the mind as a never ending, never beginning, without beginning or end, stream of consciousness, the mind, non-physical, and because of this phenomena that the mind is without beginning or end, each moment of mind caused by the previous moment of mind. That is the basis. Hi, Julia, just noticed you there. That's the basis of us studying death and dying. If the mind ended at the time of death, we wouldn't need to have to study the topic, because that'll be the end. There's nothing to worry about what would happen later. So this continuity of consciousness is very essential to the topic. And so this mind that we have is what they call the coarse mind. It does have the subtle mind there as well, but we're just our everyday mind is very much preoccupied with external senses, what's happening out there, and the more subtle levels of mind we don't get to experience or become aware of very often. But that subtle level of mind is what's left when the body ends, the brain ceases functioning, and this extremely subtle mind, indestructible drop, they call it, continues to the next life. It's permanent in the sense that it's always there, but it's not self-existing. It's changing all the time. So it's not like the soul. It's not the idea of soul in other religious traditions, which is immutable and unchanging. But it's not like that. It's there, but it's constantly subject to change, like all phenomena. So that mind also carries the seeds of all our actions. That's the other important thing, the karmic seeds. As quote from His Holiness there from the notes, by the law of karma, virtuous actions bring fortunate rebirths. And he gives the example as humans or celestial beings. Celestial beings, interesting word. Normally they're just called, say, devas or gods. These are the higher realms of samsara, which are all pleasure. So these actions that are positive will lead us to those realms in rebirth. Non-virtuous actions will bring unfortunate rebirths as animals, hungry ghosts, or hell beings. So basically the only one that will help us is the human realm, because only with the human body, with the human brain, are we able to practice the Dharma, practice the teachings, and proceed along the path to liberation and full enlightenment. It's only in that state that we can do it. The God realms, even though it sounds very attractive or pleasure, they're so intoxicated by the pleasures, sensory pleasures, that they're not interested in Dharma. We're not able to be to focus. And of course, when the incredible long life ends, as it will eventually, there's no karma, good karma being collected, and they go down to the lower realms. So just on this, I haven't said much about the lower realms, but I was reading a little book by His Holiness Pt2. It's actually an interview with him. This was one of the free books from VI when they had the book sale, or they were just giving away a lot of books. I thought this is an amazing collection by Pt2, who's head of the Sakya tradition sect in Tibetan Buddhism. He's still alive. Just had his birthday last week, I think it was, 74. He's been to Sydney many times, His Holiness Pt2, and taught various places, including Balmain Town Hall. He's actually, I remember, I think the first teaching I went was probably in the 80s, University of New South Wales. So he, extremely high Lama, and he's married, and I say they do in the Sakya tradition. And his son is his son is now taking over the lineage, also teaches as well. So anyway, in this book, it's a question and answer book. Someone asked the question, is animal rebirth really possible for humans? Answer, yes, definitely. There are many stories of animals being reborn as humans as a result of good actions, and of humans being reborn as animals too as a result of bad actions. Some animals are extremely kind, especially to their offspring, and by working very hard, they can create enough causes to achieve human rebirth. So that's, one thing with wildlife documentaries, which I do tend to watch quite a lot, I find it very difficult sometimes if the animals are killing each other. But sometimes you see these wonderful clips or pictures of animals taking care of other animals. Could be across species. And sometimes you get little clips on YouTube and social media and so on about these amazing actions of, say, a lion looking after a dog, or different animals taking care. There was one on, I think it was on Facebook recently, where a hippopotamus was trying to rescue a deer that was swimming across the river in Africa, which was being attacked by a crocodile. So as soon as the hippopotamus saw the crocodile attacking the deer, the hippopotamus went and pounced on the crocodile. And I think the deer escaped. Not sure what was going on there, but because hippopotamuses are pretty wild too. But anyway, these, as His Holiness says, animals can be extremely kind, and apart so that definitely there's and apart so that definitely there's it's possible for humans to be born animals and animals as humans. So the other interesting question is the question: are the hell metaphors? Are the question: are the hell metaphors? Are the hell the lower realms? Because the lower realms cover hungry ghosts. These are like the animals we've just mentioned. The hungry ghosts, which are spirits that are in very great suffering because they can't get enough to eat or drink, and apparently caused by attachment in previous lives. And when they do get something to drink, they can't swallow it because it's got these tiny little mouths and like knotted throats. Some of the pictures in some of the traditional Tibetan art are quite ghoulish. So those hungry ghosts are, again, non-physical, but there are some stories of some clairvoyant people or people with very refined minds being able to see them. And hell beings. Hell beings are the beings that either hot hells, cold hells, or what I think they call them the crushing hells. So question is, this is to Shakya Trijan, are the hells metaphors for states or amounts of suffering, or do they really exist as described in the Buddhist sutras? And the answer by His Holiness is something really exists, I think. Actually, it says in the sutras that they really exist much more terribly than they are described, because it says the Buddha didn't fully describe them. If he had fully described them, people would have fainted. And the follow-up question, how real are they? His Holiness says they're real as the life we have today. Yes, many people think that they're not real. They're like a dream, but actually we are happy and unhappy in dreams, just as real as we are when we're awake. This present experience also is not real, but we think everything around us is real. So hell is as real as this. Of course, hell also in reality is not real. This is also not real. What is then? That's the answer. I remember when someone asked Lama Yeshe in the retreat I went to in the Kopan course, early 80s, the same question, are the hell realms real? Where are they? I think was the question. And Lama Yeshe said, they're here in this tent right now. That was the answer. So everyone has different interpretations. So I actually interpret that to be in people's minds, the potential of the suffering hell realms are in people's minds. So then His Holiness, in his teaching on it, he says, well, do we just rely on, somebody's telling us this? And so His Holiness gives some reasons why we should have an open mind to the fact that these suffering states exist. Remember, we're trying to be aware of all possibilities after this life. And if there's a possibility that we could go into great suffering if we're not careful of our actions of body, speech, and mind, then we need to know about that. So he says, there is scriptural authority, and that's something to note. But remember, Buddhist teachings say don't accept something just because it was said by reliable scriptural authority, perhaps by even the Buddha himself, but analyze and use reason. Second point, he says you have an open mind and realize that before we dismiss the whole idea of these lower realms, note that we lack omniscience. Before we dismiss the whole idea of these lower realms, note that we lack omniscience. And the teachers who teach that they do exist are very highly realized beings, and perhaps Buddhas, perhaps do have omniscience. So just they could be there when we can't see them. So these enlightened beings, great masters, great Buddhist masters, can see all realms. If they're enlightened beings, they can see all realms because they're omniscient. That's part of the fruit of enlightenment, is omniscience, knowing all things, all phenomena. And then he says, we can see how our state of mind, if we're feeling very elated, happy, the world seems happy, if we're depressed and down, then we experience the external world is down in a very negative way. So that just shows that the mind is very much influential of how we perceive the world. Also, the other interesting thing is other cultures have no trouble accepting that there are spirits and non-physical beings. And violent societies, almost all, even the educated members of these societies say that there are spirits. Usually they talk about harmful spirits. And so the reason somebody gets sick is nearly always put down to sorcery. Somebody, some human being, sorcery can be used for good things as well. It's bad. And in Papua New Guinea, particularly when my first job was in Papua New Guinea, and there was my first job was in Papua New Guinea, and there was in the Law Department. There was an Act of Parliament called the Sorcery Act, which prohibited the use of sorcery to harm other people. And so this has come straight from the experience of the local people. It wasn't sort of imposed by the colonialists. The local people wanted people who harmed others by sorcery to be brought to law and so on, punished and so on. So definitely there's no, I think probably other than the West, most of the other cultures do accept some level of spirits or non-physical beings being out there. I remember when I was walking through the bush near my house in Vanuatu, just walking down to the beach, there's a very big banyan tree that I had to walk around to get down to the beach, and local people said, told me later that was haunted, that tree, and I should never sort of walk that way. I should go another way. Apparently, that's those sort of trees, the banyan trees, are where they congregate. They said that particularly you shouldn't do it at night. That's much more dangerous. So I respected that. I didn't want to show that I was, even then I was studying Buddhism and open to things. I haven't made much progress, but at least yeah. So that was a good example. So basically, keep an open mind is what His Holiness has said. If they are there, we can't be sure they're not. As an insurance policy, let's watch our body, speech, and mind actions, just in case. Just why not be careful? And also, very interesting. He said, actually, if you look at the history of last century, where we had World War II, Cultural Revolution, the Rwanda genocides, he said these good examples show that human mind is capable of incredible harm and damage, causing incredible harm to other beings, where humans are acting worse than animals, which is certainly true in those cases of genocide and cases of going on today, different wars and the horrors of what nations can do to each other and what people can do to each other. So if we contemplate the possible existence of the lower realms, we'll act to avoid them and aim for at least human rebirth, or if not higher rebirth, perhaps what they call the Pure Land, which is a place where it's better than human rebirth, because if you can get into the Pure Land, there's only Dharma practices. So there are only Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in those lands teaching the Dharma to the fortunate beings there, and it's possible to become enlightened very quickly. Different types of Pure Land, very hard to get into sometimes, but if we pray to go to the Pure Land, as many of our prayers have those wishes, requests, then we can create the causes to be there, to be reborn there. So, just watching time. So there's in the teaching, in the readings, in Nick Rebush's transcript, he goes through in great detail the disadvantages of not remembering impermanence and death, and the advantages. So just a quick look at this. It goes through in great detail the disadvantages of not remembering impermanence and death, and the advantages. So just a quick look at this. Won't go into as much detail. As Nick does. But so these come from the Lamrim text, particularly Pabonka's text, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. So let's have a look at the first one, not remembering the Dharma or spiritual teachings. So not remembering permanence of death means that our mind is not going to be thinking about the Dharma. So this is probably the most common reason for not practicing Dharma. We're distracted. We've got the job. We've got study. There's this overwhelming external world of senses that we're completely distracted with, from probably becomes more distracting. So there's also, particularly in the West, much more of an imperative to earn a living. So certainly from my experience, that's there, that you need to have the education, you need to get the job. No one else is going to pay you or give you money. You've got to look after yourself. This definitely is very very overwhelming kind of distraction. If you were lucky to see His Holiness teaching at the weekend online, he was asked about how to disconnect from the everyday life and the busy worldly existence. External sensory world, which is always drawing our attention outward. So just to have that half an hour to an hour in the morning early, to look inwards, to just be comfortable with our inward, our mind, and do practice, mention different types of meditation, calm abiding and analytical. So this is interesting. The person who asked the question was a Thai monk. So even Thai monks get distracted by worldly distractions. So this is why, combined with that early morning meditation, the thought of death, Rinpoche says it's good to actually think of, as soon as we wake up, that how amazing that we woke up. We've got, we didn't die in the night, but we actually are still alive. It is incredible that we do priorities more correctly in order during the day. We can have that in the back of our mind, not to easily get distracted by worldly life. So the other one is procrastination. Yes, okay. I remember I get up. Okay, I'm still alive, and who knows whether I'll get to the end of the day. That's the other one. Is some shocking accident in the paper where someone going to work was killed in a car accident, driving the kids to school, whatever it was. Incredibly tragic. They obviously woke up thinking it would be a normal day and didn't get to the end of it. So the other one, procrastination, Nick Rebirth cleverly calls this the distraction or the procrastination of being busy, too busy to meditate. So again, sometimes if you look at the things that you're busy with, it's not actually that important. It seems it's more important to do something in the garden or tidy something, maybe just clean out that cupboard or something quite mundane. But that seems to be more important than doing something with the mind, to actually spending some time meditating, studying the Dharma. So definitely if we can just watch that arising and then think about that, because the certainty of death, uncertainty of time of death, can help to get over this. If we do, then if we do practice, we do the practice, then we're not actually doing it correctly. This is the third point. So this is the old story. Nick tells it very well in great detail in his teaching, of Drom Trompa, I think that's how you pronounce it, Drom Trompa, who was a teacher's main disciple, who was very quite an earnest practitioner. So he was doing different things, like started off circumambulating students. So then he did other things, reciting texts. Teacher said that's very good, but it'd be better if you practiced Dharma. Then he said, oh, maybe I should be meditating. So he did meditation. Teacher said that's very good, but it'd be better if you practice Dharma. So what is Dharma? And Lama Zopa's words of the reply are, give up this mind, give up this life in your mind, give up this life in your mind. So this is talking about motivation. So even though John Plopper was doing what looked like very correct practices, we need to make our practice very powerful. This is something that almost every time Lama Zopa teaches, who's now teaching 2 or 3 times a week online, with transcripts, all available through FPMT website and I think on YouTube. This is the other. His constant message is this: the need to sort of have the right motivation to renounce the everyday world when we do our practice. And His Holiness says one way to do this is to have a good heart, and at least be wisely self. We can't be totally others. To create less self, less preoccupation with yourself. And of course, the thought of death will actually almost instantly help to refocus the mind very sharply. There's another little story there, another thing that if we don't remember death, at the beginning, middle and end of the day, will not practice seriously. So this is a good story. There was a Geshe, each time he had to leave the cave to get water or whatever, he scratched himself on the thorn bush. But he didn't bother about the thorn bush. He said, it went on for years, and he kept scratching himself more and more. But as time went on, he became more and more determined not to be distracted by cutting up the thorn bush, which he said it was a distraction compared to the importance of getting back and doing his practices in the cave. I thought, okay, that's really good for me, because I often think there's something in the garden that I've just got to fix up. I've just got to prune that bush or something. And the thorn bush, this wonderful Geshe didn't even take time to do something that would have actually given. Some of these are fairly obvious. If we don't have death in our minds, the certainty of death, we can have this follow the negative mind. So if we've got this idea of death coming up constantly in our mind, how can we actually take seriously our dispute with the neighbour or something that is actually any minute? So the other disadvantages is the mind will die with a regretting mind, as Pawampa points out, if we haven't actually skillfully used our time during our life. So just reading Lama Yeshe's wonderful biography, Big Love. I'm just at the end of it, and he's actually starting the process of dying, and he's just about to go to the hospital. He's got major heart problems, and the doctors have said he needs to have an operation. And one of his gurus, Song Rinpoche, said he should have the operation. And he said to one of the students, well, whether the operation is successful or not, I'm completely satisfied with my life. He said, I've dedicated. One of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's recommended meditation is to just sit and count the number of relatives and friends who have died. I haven't actually done that yet, but there's obviously my parents and close friends who I could count, but there's a lot of others who are less close that I could count. So he said that's a very good meditation. And then in his teaching, if you've read the readings, he actually gives some stories about his brothers and sisters. I think he had 7, and 3 of them died in childhood. One of them was born with 2 heads, he said, and another one had a tail. So he obviously told these stories for our own benefit. And then he gives stories about his uncle, wonderful story about his uncle, who was very sick for a long time, had very, very persistent prostrations and, some specific practices. And he did 7 years of prostration, 7 years. He was married with family, but he managed to do 7 years of prostrations. And his illness was cured, and he lived to a very old age. So he gives the example of Zena, who was the very first Westerner to request teachings from us, really by chance, in Darjeeling, and asked them for teachings very sincerely, and they did somewhere in, I think, North India, and died during that retreat, quite young, leaving a young daughter behind. So he usually advantage of thinking about death. Don't need to go. They're very straightforward. The mind at the time of death is going to be very influential in the future life, the next rebirth. So I'm just keeping an eye on the time, so that we have time to do the meditation at the end. So 66, in his transcript, he goes through the details. And also Lama Yeshe has a really good meditation. So Lama Yeshe leads a group. It's a group retreat. And it's a transcript of his teachings on the lower realms exist and so on. Again, we haven't expressly believe that based on our own reasoning that this actually is what happens. So at the time of death, remember the Buddhist teaching is that the body is slowly shutting down, and as the body shuts down, this has effect on the mind. So there's different visions occurring on the mind, particularly as we lose the elements, the sensory elements, and the different earth element, wind element, fire element dissolve in the body. This has effect on the mind. So this is basically what these processes are describing. And then when the mind, all the coarse elements of the mind cease, and the mind becomes more and more subtle. So we'll do this meditation next week. It's very powerful. So just you can read what is in the notes. What is in the notes actually was from Choki's notes, which I think came from Pabonka's teaching. There are these different external signs. So the body exhibits certain signs that that particular process is happening, that an element is, and then there's the internal side is what the dying person experiences. So I'll just sort of read the main bits. The first stage of death is characterized by physical weakness and loss of our most dominant sense faculty. Our vision becomes blurred and dark. The sight is the first of the sense faculties to disintegrate. There's a physical sensation of pressure, like being buried beneath the sand or sinking into the earth. A sudden sense of loss of support. Feel as if we are falling. Similar sensations may occur when we're going to sleep. From the 5 qualities of knowledge that, when perfected, become the 5 transcendental wisdoms of a Buddha, our mind loses the mirror-like quality of being able to understand many different things at the same time. And there's an inner vision, like a shimmering silvery blue mirage on the desert. So that the body, the other things, the body becomes thin, the luster of the body diminishes, so this is an external sign, and this feeling of sinking into the earth. And then the silvery blue mirage image, like an appearance of water in the desert. So this is the earth, as the earth element dissolves, the water element predominates. So it's described as the earth element is more predominant. So you get this vision of the mirage. So the second one, where the water, this is we can no longer recognize our friends and relatives. The body becomes cold. We lose the sense of smell. The inner vision is we see red sparks dancing manifest. So the wind, this is Venerable Adrian, he says the wind energies have contracted inwards, and as the winds from the upper half of the body move down towards the heart chakra, the inner vision becomes white, like the light of a full moon in a clear sky. So that the heat of the body's dissolving into the heart chakra. So like white sky, clear light, like the first appearance of light in the eastern sky. Oh, sorry, no. The next one is red increase. So this is where the white vision gives way to a red vision, like sunset, like a red sunset, where it's like a swoon or unconsciousness when all awareness just dissolves into blackness. And this is as if one has become unconscious. So, so at this stage, it's said that this the very subtle mind is all that's there, and it's at this stage where the mind of clear light emerges, which is like this clear sky at dawn. So this is the emerging from the black mind, the unconscious mind. Is this incredibly blissful mind of clear light, and that's when the mind, the subtle energy wind of the mind and the physical body end. So the mind leaves the body. So this is at the time. This is the time where the person is, according to the Buddha's teaching, has actually died, when the subtle mind leaves the body. So the great and probably the only experience I've had seeing this is Geshe Dawa's passing, which 3 or 4 years ago he passed. He died at home in the centre at Padstow, and his physical body stopped breathing, and he lay in clear light for about 3 or 4 days, and his teacher, Lab Rinpoche, was there, and so he was confirming that Geshe Dawa was in the clear light. So there was no there's still meditative. The body is fresh, and that can last for days. I think even longer, a week apparently. So when the mind leaves the external side, the subtle clear light mind leaves, there's some blood comes from the nostrils and some white substance from the sexual organ, according to the teachings. And that means that the person has, the clear light mind has left the body, subtle mind's left the body. So then, depending on the karma of the being, to nirvana, or going to the next life. So this is the bardo state. So if the person is those 3 points on death awareness, it's a death awareness meditation. First point being that death is certain, inevitable. There's many subpoints there. We look at things, the fact that nobody escapes life without dying. We also look at the fact that from the moment we're born, life is diminishing. So we're trying to get beyond mere intellectual, yet of course we understand everybody dies. We're actually trying to experience that very personally. That includes us, ourselves. And then we even include contemplating on how little time we have to do any Dharma practice. Because even though we might live a bit longer, we're distracted. A third of our life will be in sleep. And then there's work, there's family things. There's time either sitting, lying, or something in between. Got to make sure the body is really relaxed, comfortable, before we start our practice on death awareness. remembering that the purpose of this practice is to help us prioritize what activities are important, to bring into focus our mortality, helps it to live well. Considering death every day helps us to live well and die well. That's the purpose. First point, that death is certain and inevitable. Our body will definitely die. Best thing is to remember people in our life, loved ones, friends, relatives, our parents perhaps, who we've lost. Particularly in the even the most famous, wealthiest, highest ranking of human beings on earth will have to pass away, will have to die. Within 100 years, almost every human being alive today will have died. Our own life is diminishing moment by moment, second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour. Each second that passes brings us closer to our own death. Even in the time we have left in this human body, so much time we can't practice Dharma. A third of our life is spent sleeping. Another large part of the mind is spent working mundane activities, being distracted by negative states of mind that we can't practice. There's so little time to spend developing the mind, doing spiritual practice. Second point, death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. That means there's no guarantee we'll live a normal lifespan. Consider those who've died who are younger than us, perhaps friends we knew at school. Think of the hazards, the fragility of life, the sicknesses, not just COVID-19, but so many other illnesses. Accidents, misadventures, unexplained death, old age. Recalling those who woke up today and have unexpectedly died, did not make it to tonight. even the causes of life, sustaining like medicine, can kill us. Even food can poison us, which is supposed to sustain life. Third point, death is certain, time of death uncertain. And the only thing that can help at the time of death is our spiritual practice. A peaceful mind, unattached. We have to leave it. Our possessions, our treasured possessions, our house, our wealth, all have to be left. Decreasing our negative habits, attachment, anger, ignorance, increasing our patience, compassion, wisdom in this life now will help at the time of death, will help our transition to the next life, will help us have a peaceful death without regret. Practicing Dharma will allow us to transcend the fear of death, allow us to die peacefully. In conclusion, death awareness helps us develop renunciation, lessens attachment to this life. It helps us develop compassion, and we realize that all will die, not just ourselves, everyone. It helps us develop wisdom, realizing that the I, the self, there's no permanent existence, no inherent existence. Letting go of the self. All this is Dharma practice. The three essentials of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, shunyata, wisdom, realizing the truth. All from death meditation. We dedicate now any positive merit from tonight's practice, tonight's discussion, meditation, contemplation, towards our progress on the path, development of a renounced mind, detached mind, a peaceful death. Just read Lama Zopa's recommended dedication for the Corona time. However many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sicknesses. May all by me, all the numberless Buddhas and the numberless sentient beings, may all wars, all sickness, famine, torture, poverty, economic problems in the world, all dangers of earth, water, fire and wind be pacified immediately. May perfect peace and happiness prevail in everyone's hearts and lives. May the Buddha Dharma last for a long time, and may the sentient beings in this world meet the Buddha Dharma and achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible. Well, thank you so much for being there. Wonderful to have your company. Have a great night, great week, and see you again same time next week. Take care and stay well. Signing off.